Greetings from Kenwell. Today is Wednesday, March the 1st. We just got back from a wonderful time in Cuba where I had the privilege of walking hand in hand with the love of my life on the beach. And I have to tell you that walking on the white stuff in Cuba is much nicer than walking on the white stuff that is outside today. Anyways, over the last number of months, actually last couple of years, I've made all sorts of videos where I've shown about the evidence and the reliability of Christianity. And truthfully, if anyone wants to find God, if they simply look at my videos, it's going to be easy to see that the evidence points to Jesus Christ. Today, I want to tell you about the first man and the first lady in the Bible. The first mention of Adam and Eve is found in Genesis 1:27. And it says, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them." Then in Genesis 2:7, it says, God gives some more details. It says, "The Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. God then called the man Adam and later created Eve from Adam's rib." Today, only 4 out of 10 people believe that Adam and Eve existed. Not only that, but there are lots of ministers and a few ministers that I know personally, they do not believe in Adam and Eve, even though it is plainly pointed out in the scriptures. The scriptures categorically tell us that Adam and Eve were real people. And you look at it in the New Testament, Luke chapter 3, it gives the genealogy of Jesus and it goes all the way back to Adam. And Jesus said in Matthew 19 verse 4, "Haven't you read," he replied, "that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female?" Here, he is obviously referring to Adam and Eve. Altogether, Adam is mentioned 9 times in the New Testament, and we have the detailed story of Adam that in the Old Testament. Now, today I want to go through the evidence that Adam and Eve truly did exist. When you examine the Bible, you will quickly see how accurate it is when it comes to genealogy. And when you add up these genealogies, you come up with creation being only around 6,000 years ago. Of course, when a lot of people hear this, they will laugh because they have been truly indoctrinated with the age of the universe being billions and billions of years old, the age of the earth being about 3.5 billion, and the beginning of life all happened about 3.5 billion years ago. But there is lots of modern scientific evidence that supports creation happening only 6,000 years ago. Now, I want to tell you how genetics, and this is an amazing story, how genetics shows that there really was an Adam and Eve that existed only around 6,000 years ago. Secular science will tell you that chimpanzees and humans shared a common ancestor. Well, what does the Bible say about this? Genesis 1:24 tells us that God created all the animals according to its kind. Then in Genesis 1:26, God says that he created man in his image. Man is truly different than all the animals. So according to the Bible, we did not evolve from a common ancestor. Humans are truly unique among God's creation. Now, it is true that there is a similarity between the DNA of chimps and humans. In fact, there is an 85% similarity overall. That might sound like it is close, but that equals to a whopping 450 million differences. You got to admit, that is huge. Now, there is another facet of how evolutionists compare chimp and human DNA. It is called mitochondrial Eve. In 2013, evolutionists believe this mitochondrial Eve, who is not the same as the biblical Eve, is one woman of possibly 10,000 people that were alive around 157,000 years ago. Now, I want you to remember that the Bible tells us that there was approximately 2,000 years between Adam and Abraham, 2,000 years between Abraham and Jesus, and another approximately 2,000 years between Jesus and today. So we know that the Eve of the Bible lived around 6,000 years ago. And I like to say, and there isn't a hope in Hades that there lived anyone 157,000 years ago. Now, let's get back to mitochondrial Eve, who evolutionists do indeed say lived around 157,000 years ago. Now, if you remember your science, mitochondria, they produce energy, and they are called the powerhouse of the cell. Not only that, but they have their own DNA. Now, here's one fact about mitochondria DNA. We only inherit mitochondria DNA from our mother. Therefore, we can use mitochondria DNA to trace maternal lineages. Now, this DNA is very similar in all females. That is why evolutionists believe that there's only one line today in people. But logically, let's think about what the evolutionist is saying. If 157,000 years ago, there were 10,000 people, there were probably around 5,000 people. And they are saying that from these 5,000 females, they are saying that from these 5,000 females, only one line survived. The possibility of that is very slim. It truly is much easier for a Christian to say that we have one line of females today that truly came from the biblical Eve. It doesn't make sense from 5,000 females in the past that we can only get one line of females today. The Bible sure does make more sense out of all of this. Now, here is the biggest flaw that evolutionists have with mitochondria Eve. Now, they are assuming that humans and chimps have a common ancestor. And we know that according to the Bible, this is totally false. Because of comparing chimps and humans together, that is how they come up with the mitochondrial Eve living around 157,000 years ago. But here's an amazing study. In 1997, a number of evolutionists collaborated on a paper, and they found that mitochondrial Eve lived only 6,500 years ago. You know, that sure sounds like the biblical account, doesn't it? Now, the big difference here was that they were not assuming a common ancestry between chimps and humans. They were just looking at humans by themselves. You know, here, evolutionists have shown that their mitochondria Eve is indeed the Eve of the Bible. Isn't that great? Now, here's also something interesting that researchers came up with. Researchers have found something amazing regarding mitochondrial Eve. Now, scientists know that the mutation rate of mitochondria DNA. If mitochondria Eve was 157,000 years ago, the mutation rate would have been upwards to 1,000, with the lowest possible rate of being 535. But evolution has found that if mitochondrial Eve lived 6,000 years ago, then the mutation rate would be between 20 to 79. With our huge, and I swear it is huge, our huge mitochondrial database, scientists have shown that the mutation rate is 77. It perfectly fits into that range of between 20 to 79. From the scientific evidence, it is absolutely conclusive. The biblical Eve did exist, and she lived around 6,000 years ago.